Or Dave Chappelle drama. So Dave Chappelle had a response to the backlash because, as everyone probably knows, because it's been very viral and out there, Dave Chappelle received a lot of backlash from his Netflix special, The Closure. Netflix had a what was it, a strike? What would you like a walkout?
Yeah, walkout.
Something like that.
Yeah,
Where
the walkout.
yeah, they said they tried to get 1,000 people. It was more like 100 or a few hundred, not and some viral clips came from that. One guy had his sign stolen from him, ripped, and blah blah blah. Like I showed it to y'all, like some stuff like that. Apparently, they made some false claims about Dave Chappelle reaching. They reached out to him for a comment, and he denied it. Apparently, he addresses that in this clip. But basically, there's some controversy going on about Dave Chappelle, The Closure, Netflix, and the trans community that works at Netflix, or people who support the trans community from Netflix. And this is Dave Chappelle's response from it. Let's watch the clip and then let's react.
It's been said in the press that I was invited to speak to the transgender employees at Netflix, and I refuse. That is not true. If they had invited me, I would have accepted it, although I am confused about what we are speaking about. I said what I said, and boy, I heard what you said. My God, how could I not? You said you want a safe working environment at Netflix. Well, it seems like I'm the only one that can't go to the office anymore.
And he's sipping that shit too.
He did this.
I want everyone in this audience to know that even though the media frames this, that it's me versus that community, that is not what it is. Do not blame the LGBTQ community for any of this shit. This has nothing to do with them. It's about corporate interests and what I can say and what I cannot say.
Yeah, man. Free speech. Yeah.
For the record, and I need you to know this, everyone I know from that community has been nothing but loving and supporting. So I don't know what all this nonsense is about. In summer 2020,
Go to John's point he said earlier.
when the whole world shut down, I was outside doing shows. My neighbor had a cornfield, and he let me throw shows there, and people came from all over the country. Some people came from around the world to see those shows. The best comedians on earth came to my home and broke bread with me, and we lived our lives. We found a way to keep moving forward. I made a whole documentary about it. The first night of those shows was a piece that some of you might have seen. It was called 846, and it dealt with the murder of George Floyd. This film that I made was invited to every film festival in the United States, and some of those invitations I accepted. And when this controversy came out about the closer, they began disinviting me from these film festivals. And now,
They're trying to cancel.
today, not a film company, not a movie studio, not a film festival, nobody will touch this film. Thank God for Ted Sarandos at Netflix. He's the only one that didn't cancel me yet.
You did cash well. How the fuck would they cancel?
To the transgender community, I am more than willing to give you an audience, but you will not summon me. I am not bending to anybody's demands. And if you want to meet with me, I'd be more than willing to, but I have some conditions.
Oh, joke's coming.
Of course.
First of all, you cannot come if you have not watched my special from beginning to end. You must come to a place of my choosing and a time of my choosing. And thirdly, you must admit that Hannah Gatsby is not funny.
Apparently, Hannah Gatsby said some things about the thing.
Like, man.
I desperately want people to see this movie. But I understand why investors would be nervous. Since nobody will touch it, I'll tell you what I'll do. I will make it available for all of you in 10 American cities, going on sale in the next few days. You will be able to see this movie in its entirety, and you can see what they're trying to obstruct you from seeing. And you can judge for yourself, but you cannot have this conversation and exclude my voice from it. That is only fair. You have to answer the question, am I canceled or not? Then let's go. Thank you very much, and good night.
What movie is he talking about? This one?
No. Apparently, he said he was recording a documentary where he would do shows on his friend's cornfield. And I think the documentary was revolved around, I guess, the issues going on. And one of the things was that particular stand-up where he talked about the George Floyd murder.
No, yeah, he said he actually talked about multiple. I've heard about it before. He talked about multiple. It's just some of it's just random stand-up too, but it's just that cornfield. One of those shows was that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like they bought that one, but I guess now I don't know, dude. That's. I just want to. Okay, let me ask a question. What makes you the voice of a community as an individual? Is it a calling or is it situational?
I think they're one and the same.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think they're one and the same. Because it's a calling, and the calling being the community themselves pick you up as, and then you say it was a calling or is it a situation? It's a situation because you have to be in the right situation
So let's identify.
to be lifted up by the community.
So let's identify who was speaking to Dave Chappelle. Marianne something is the leader.
Something like that. I know you're talking about. Yeah.
The most vocal person.
Most vocal. Organizer, something like that.
Organizer, right? She's speaking now for the whole trans community.
But she doesn't represent the whole trans community.
She doesn't represent the whole trans community. But as far as media is concerned, as far as the conversation is being had, she represents the trans community, the upset part of the trans community at Dave Chappelle, right? This lady, who has racist-ass tweets, represents a community that she feels is being oppressed. But she can tweet, speak English, this is America, I'm tired of hearing Chinese people speak Chinese. I'm tired of hearing Spanish people speak Spanish. This is America. Yeah, I said it. So my question is, because she has whatever flaw she has, it doesn't take away from whatever message she's trying to say as a person. Does it?
No.
The message can still be the message, right?
Just simply put, doesn't matter what the message is, just it doesn't take away from the message. Sure. Okay.
Okay. So it's funny to me that the leader of that organization could be upset at Dave Chappelle over verbalizing something he feels to be not even an issue. He actually has never said any anything they do any intermingling they do is an issue or anything like that has ever been an issue. It's been the
treatment or the privileges.
The fact we can't be critical of them.
Okay.
That
privileges
fact,
then.
Yeah, that's what his issue is. So it's funny to me that she could be critical.
He's not saying y'all can't be whatever.
Boom.
It's just
because if you ask her, and I'm calling the person to her, I don't know what she would tell you she's not racist. But in the same tongue would turn around and tell you Dave Chappelle is a bigot or a homophobic or transphobe. Yeah. There you go, boom, transphobe. So it's just wild to me how somebody else's.
I think that's what Hannah Gatsby did, try to say Dave Chappelle's transphobic or whatever. I didn't hear the specifics of the jokes, but I saw some quotes.
I feel like his message more is that there can't be resistance. It's not in the sense that, like, you know, trans people shouldn't have that option to become trans or transgender in whatever direction they want to go or whoever they want to be. It's more so that we're not allowed to critique the the execution of the movement that they're representing. Like all of a sudden a lot of people have to focus on pronouns, and it almost feels like it's illegal if we don't use them, and people can't comment on that without being some kind of a oppressive person, or somebody who's being hateful or anything like that. But yet the reverse can be done without any kind of repercussion. You know what I mean? Like, and more like regulation can be given by this group, and that's kind of, I think, the issue that he is trying to stop, because he's like, cancel culture, I think, is really what he's trying to fight. I don't think it's a transgender individual or even as a group. It's just the cancel culture aspect behind it that's driving it and that's empowering it. He
I,
doesn't like that because he doesn't want to be canceled, and he doesn't want other people and regular Joes to be canceled. And I think that
The
is
whole
really what
notion of it, yeah.
yeah, I think that's what he's tapping into. That's what he's got his finger on the pulse. And that's where the majority of people are starting to kind of gravitate towards him, because a lot of average Joes are scared, or average Joe and Janes are scared that they could be canceled for some sort of opposition to it. And it doesn't feel right.
I agree with that, but I think it's like a. I agree with that, but I think it's like he's saying he doesn't cancel culture is like a byproduct of what he's fighting. I don't think that's the main thing he's actually fighting. I think the main thing he's fighting is conversation, like the restrictiveness that people are putting on conversations, even between me and you as a friend or in small groups, whatever platform it is, because if you can't be critical, and let's be honest here, we're only being critical of extremes. When we're talking about anything, most of the time, what TV is perpetuating is an
Or the
extreme
extremes.
that we're being critical of.
Okay.
You're talking about
I can see that.
people raiding the White House. You're talking about the extreme of one side. You're talking about somebody looting or rioting. You're talking about the extreme of one side. You're not talking about the majority, the vast majority. And so, if you're not allowed to be critical, I think what he's saying is, if you're not allowed to be critical of an extreme, conversationally, where will we ever go? What are we actually allowed to talk about? Because that's the only thing to discuss. Everybody that's doing what they're supposed to be doing and minding their business, it's not much to discuss. We understand. Whatever you love is whatever you love. Whatever you're doing is whatever you're doing. Nobody's faulting you for that. Nobody's arguing about that. It's the extremes of every single point of thinking that people are critical of. And we're getting to a space where we can't even be critical of something that's an obvious extreme, which allows the gray areas that we always discuss to seep in. And I think that's what the real problem is, because if you're a comedian, or if you're somebody who, honestly speaking, hides pain with comedy or views pain through a comedic lens, that conversation is almost value. You almost look at it like the fact that we can't have that conversation is almost like me missing out on the material, me missing out on the a genuine moment, which I could almost either get a story from, which I could get this from, which it's just almost like a locked door of content. And it's whether you look at it just that way, or whether you look at it just you want people to grow or be progressive. If we can't be critical of extremes, like, bro, what are we doing here? Well, we're gonna talk. If I killed somebody and I'm like, yeah, let's talk about everything else I've done, but you can't talk about the fact that I killed somebody. Go ahead and describe me. But don't describe the fact that I killed somebody. What do you mean? It's part of the body. It's part of what I've done. It's part of my actions. It defines part of me. So I just don't get that. I think that's the purpose. I just don't get how we can't be critical of extremes.
I think that's the dilemma, though. Like with social media and all that stuff, like even looking at that transgender person that just came out with her like, I don't know her name. You were saying it earlier.
Mary
But
Ann
like,
or Mary something. I apologize
yeah,
for forgetting the name.
like her previous life, I mean, she
Her previous life.
I don't I don't know the terminology.
Just say it, dog. Let's get on with it.
Yeah, like previously on Twitter, you had all this like racial rant and stuff like that, and supposedly that was pre-trans and stuff like that. So, um, she's said openly that like she was upset at that time because she was still he, and like you said with the whole murder thing, can you overlook that? And if you can't, then it kind of justifies a decent amount of cancel culture where people are going back in time to look over that stuff and like use it against them in the future. But I don't think that's also the right way either. I do think it comes down to a situational moment, where you have to kind of take every individual situation accordingly. It's just people don't know what to do with it. Like I don't know what the fuck to do with it. Like it makes sense that you would cancel somebody for saying that bigoted shit back then. At the same time, also currently, I'm trying to practice forgiveness to be like, fuck, like I don't want me personally. I wouldn't want to be canceled for these podcasts in 10, 15 years if I'm not on the right side of the zeitgeist when I get there. You know what I mean? Like
That's a
if
weird
in
mentality, though. But I understand what you're saying.
yeah, because like in 10 or 15 years, like if whatever new philosophy that people are about, whether it's like hyper liberalism or hyper conservatism, whichever way we end up swinging, and then somebody listens to the podcast and they're just like, oh, look, Doc was on that side back then. Cancel him. Like, dude, you can't live your life like that, man. Like, I'm not gonna be. I'm gonna think 20 years ahead as far as like family and jobs and all that stuff like that, and try my best to be a current decent person. But like, I'm not gonna be like, well, I need to watch these comments or these tweets and like all this stuff because who knows in 20 years? Like, dude, it's just so restrictive, man. For a country that prides itself on freedom of speech, that is not freedom of speech, man.
I will say this too about it seems like sometimes I like to harp on liberals or something like that, or I'm not conservative or anything like that, but I'll say this too from the conservative side of looking at this. It's also not fair. Like for example, when people are critical of LeBron James and they bring up the China thing and how he didn't have much to say on the social issues of China. To me, that is the same as this person here, Marianne or whatever, being critical of another race, but then wanting to be super progressive when it comes to trans issues. The reason I say that is because you're allowed to. You don't. If you're standing for something, it does not literally mean you have to be socially a social justice warrior, a social thing for every issue. There are issues that you're allowed to say, I don't know. Or you're even allowed to say, I don't care. I don't, because I'm preaching good here. And that's why I said, does her past racist whatever reflect this? Because you're allowed to have an opinion on something and then maybe not. Like if like for example, LeBron cares about, let's say, black kids in the inner city going to school. He doesn't have to care about every kid on earth going to school, therefore just because it almost makes it, what's the point of even.
Oh, the Cleveland kids get to go to school. Well, why not the California kids?
Yeah, but it makes it almost like, what's the point in doing good? What's the point if now I have to be, if I decide to be good on one thing, now I have to officially, I'm an official spokesman of all that is good. No, it's more complex than that. So like, even this person, I would just think that this person would be more in an understanding place.
But that seems to be the issue, though, is whether you're conservative or liberal, blah blah blah. Each one feels like the criticism or the, be it positive or negative, but the criticism overall is not being equally distributed.
Yes, I completely agree. But that's what I said.
But that's what,
you're listening to extremes. We're all being critical of extremes. So it's like, you see what you see. All these algorithms are set to do this to us too. So if you all the time the things you're clicking on are hate towards Donald Trump and you're a Trumper, or if you're all the things you're clicking are hate towards Biden and you're a Bideneer or whatever the fuck they're called, the algorithm is set to always
Brandon.
show you that shit though. You get what I'm saying? So as far as your perception is oh, all these people hating on my goddamn dude, what the fuck? But the algorithm's literally showing you what you're clicking on. That's not to say that's the whole that's how everybody thinks. That's why I said I've had to really separate the content I'm viewing on the internet from the people that I'm interacting with and their opinion, and associating those opinions to people all the time. Because obviously there are people who are sheep and there are people who just whatever they accept, they see on TV, they accept. But even
And
we're
the
watching the
sheep
Russell
still?
Brand thing. Dude, we're down to 38% of people trust what they're on TV. He said this is the second lowest ever in history that people have trusted what they're seeing from the media. So
think it's too much information, man. It's so
too
much that
much.
nobody knows what's real anymore.
Well, also because of the like we just got to expressing, people aren't really feel like comfortable conversing with each other, expressing their opinions. Then obviously, if you can't even talk to other people to bounce your own opinions off of, and then now you got this coupled with you can't trust the media, it's like, who do
Who do
you
you trust?
trust?
Mm-hmm.
Is
I'm
it
right
weird
there
that
with
I'm
you.
actually kind of thankful for that? Like I've learned through internet conversing that in-person conversing is just so much better because there's so many more social cues that you're fed when you're in front of a person. Like you can read body language, you can read facial cues, you can read tone, so you can pick up on sarcasm. You can't get none of that over texts
And it's
and
more
stuff like
constructive
that.
because it forces you to engage in a certain parameter of things. Like obviously, when I'm being face to face or blah blah blah, I have to keep a level of respect in this conversation because if I treat you a certain way, well, maybe as we jokingly say amongst men, level of violence. Like like if I disrespect you, there's consequences to that. So if I want this to be a productive conversation, I gotta, even if I disagree with you or don't like what you're saying, I have to approach this with a manner of respect, humility, and that is lost when it comes to these internet conversations.
100%. Remember,
I'm
we've
behind a
always
screen,
spoke about
an
this.
avatar.
We've
I
always
get to
spoke
be
about
the
this.
jerkiest of jerks or whatever, what have you.
The importance of the building of a conversation. The actual foundation of a conversation, we always said, is respect. Now, for example, if he goes and talks to Mary Ann, right? Mary Ann has in her head, Dave Chappelle hates trans. There's no conversation to be had. If, in fact, Dave Chappelle doesn't hate trans. If Dave Chappelle does hate trans, and he's going under there under the guise of, I don't hate trans, there's no conversation to be had. You have to have something you agree on before the conversation can begin. So if they're going there like he hates trans and he knows he doesn't hate trans, anything he says will be taken in through the lens of there's a person who hates trans, and so there's no actual there's no place to build from. The conversation has to start with from a mutually respective point before he can build. If there's nothing there, then we're just gonna be butting heads till we finally either tire each other out and then say, oh, that's not what I meant. Well, that's not what I meant. And now we have to backtrack the whole conversation and now add nuance and context to a conversation that could have just been started with respect. So I don't even think it would be helpful for them. Who speaks to Dave? Because Dave represents himself. Is it Marie Ann?
He's never tried to say I'm speaking for a particular community. It's just I'm a guy, comedian who happens to be successful and well liked, expressing my opinions and thoughts, and y'all happen to like it and want to hear it. And I'm capitalistic country. I'm taking advantage of that.
Who
okay.
speaks for them? Do they want Marie Ann to speak for them? Because I'll tell you what, if it's Marie Ann on a one-on-one conversation with Dave Chappelle, it's not gonna go well for the trans community, and it's not gonna be productive for anybody who has questions for the trans community, because you're gonna feel like you left that conversation with a whole bunch more questions that they couldn't answer. And guess what? People hate more than anything: confusion.
To go back and make sense. I don't know if it's a random thing to go back to the whole thing with the New York governor with the Christian thing. Like, yeah, man, just. It brings questions like I forget her name, the governor. What she said, it created more questions than answers. So because it creates more answers, it causes more confusion, and because it causes more confusion, you create these precarious viewpoints or situations, and it's just like it's not helpful. And that's why Doc didn't understand the offense. But the reason why I was, I guess you could say, offended was because you're not putting a good look on the Christian community.
Boom.
And the same thing applies, that you're not putting a good look on the trans community. You're not being helpful to answering questions that people are obviously having. There are so many questions.
The question
and you don't want to answer them.
That's wild.
Say that again?
The question itself is disrespectful. That's wild. That's where we are in conversation now.
What up, Ethan?
Well, I actually think that part of the issue is that, like, a lot of activism is very materialistic at this current point. Like, there are definitely things that need to be fought for and need to be changed and stuff like that, and that's no exception, especially as, like, just human beings, us reacting to the world. I just think that there are certain levels of or certain individuals within large activist groups that are asking for things that are too materialistic in a
Doc.
way that it's like it, it's it's just disingenuous.
Say it,
Like
Doc.
that person, she was making requests and like they were asking for like a transgender on the board, the executive board. They
Yep.
were asking for
Yep.
pay
Raises.
Say it,
Yep.
increases.
Doc.
And I was like, that doesn't make any sense, man. Like how I'm oppressed, give me a raise. Like what?
Say it, Doc.
It just doesn't make any sense. So I think with that tied with the restrictions that are coming in from like just I have to follow these set rules, I have to speak this way, I have to you can't lash back anything out. If you're with me, you're I honestly all you can be is with me because if you're it's the whole violence thing. Like if you're not saying anything, then you're being violent. If you're saying the wrong thing, then you're being violent.
Or
So you have to
silence.
be
Exactly.
right
Silence
with
is
me.
violence.
The
Yep.
thing
Yeah,
that happened.
Keep
and
going, Doc.
so you have to be with me, and being with me means I get a raise. Like what the fuck?
Boom.
Come on, man. Like
And you know what happened, Doc? You know what happened?
what?
Activism got monetized. And that
Capitalism,
was our
bro.
downfall.
We can't escape it no matter
That
what.
was our-
It's just
that was our
That was our
energy.
downfall. Activism got monetized. Boy, and I'll tell you what. And this takes away nothing from the movement. It takes away nothing from the action. But boy, Kaepernick, Sean White or Sean King,
Sean King.
activism has officially been monetized. It's
I
not
didn't
to
go as
say
far
that
as
it's
I'm not even gonna go there.
it's not to say that anybody's done it with negative intentions. I'm not speaking on any of those things. But when
But where there's a
activism,
will, there's a
when
way.
doing good deeds got monetized, it no longer became doing good deeds. That's all I'll say. It's not if my mom always told me this, if I do something for a person's gratitude, I won't get the, if you're religious, heavenly gratitude because I've already got the earthly gratitude. So I'll just put it on that
That
point.
makes sense, and I believe that. I think that's a good place to leave. We're already past an hour. Any last points you guys want to make?
R. Kelly was pulling up to middle schools. I'm just
Make it rough.
gonna keep
It's just like,
I'm just gonna keep it consistent, my boy.
yo, you made it to the end. Really appreciate it. Thanks for watching Fake Deep Thinking. If you like the show, remember to like, comment, subscribe, and to share. We really appreciate everything and appreciate you. So take it easy. Peace.
Peace.
Have a good day.